Hi, this is Kathy from the White Pigeon Library. I just wanted to go through some books that we have on Libby that you can read on your Kindle or your tablet or your phone that we don't necessarily have in the library. One of them was Fight Night by Miriam Towes, and she was the one that wrote Women Talking. That was one of the movies that was up for an Academy Award this past year. And it's designated as literary fiction, and it's just so beautifully written. It's about 3 generations of women who live in Canada, the grandmother, and from the point of view of her granddaughter, and about the mother, who is a single mother and pregnant, and nobody quite knows where the father is, but the relationship between these 3 women is just hilarious. And at one point, the granddaughter and the grandmother decides she's got to go visit relatives in California. So somehow they manage to do this and get there and see people and then travel back, even though the grandmother is during some fairly serious health issues. And when she gets back, they go to the hospital and grandma dies and the baby is born. And it's beautifully written. And Women Talking was a wonderful book too. So Fight Night, Miriam Towes. And then this is what, oh, I have a picture of it. Fight Night, that's what the cover looks like. Then we've got The Borrower by Rebecca Mackey. And this was fantastic too. It's about a librarian. And she's the children's librarian, so she's in the basement and she's got a particular patron that she really, really likes. And then the mother comes in and tells her that she wants to limit what her son is able to get from the library, and very, very strict limitations. And the child is a real reader and just wants to read everything. And I'm not sure how this happened, but somehow he's in her car and she's trying to take him back home, and he didn't want to go, and they ended up driving all over the country. So she's basically kidnapped this child. She goes back to her family, Russian immigrants that live in Chicago, and then she decides she has to go to Ohio for some reason, and the child won't go back. He says he has to go to New York in order to find someone, a relative that he could stay with. So they go on this just epic road trip. Eventually they come back, and she does take him home. But it's very interesting and very touching and just very well written. We've got The Whalebone Theater by Joanna Quinn. Whalebone Theater, set right before World War II. This group of children growing up in one of those huge estates in England, out in the country. And the mother, it's kind of the roaring 20s, so she's very fashionable and having lots of parties. And her husband, there are 3 children, and one belongs to the husband and his first wife, one belongs to the husband and the second wife, and then one belongs to the second wife and her second husband. So the children are related, but barely in odd ways, step kids. But it talks about the parties of the Roaring 20s and how World War II came in, and then all 3 of them get involved in the war. The oldest becomes a spy and works in occupied France, and her brother does the same thing and doesn't come back. And they, in between, create this Whalebone Theater, which is a theater on the beach, and they get all of the townspeople to be involved, and the youngest, everyone's involved. And then they have a crazy Russian artist that comes through with his group, and Roaring 20s, so they're basically just, partying through the area, but they're all involved in this theater production. Fabulous book. We've got Solito by Javier Zamora. And this is about a child who has to leave El Salvador. His parents are both in California, and the family's been saving for quite a while in order to pay a coyote to take them across the border from El Salvador. So first they have to get across several borders, and walk through Mexico. It's supposed to take 2 weeks. It ends up taking months. They are sent back, and it just talks about the process and what actually happens. But there really isn't anybody to take care of this child anymore. He needs to get to his parents. And this seems to be the only way they can really figure out how to do it. And it is fascinating to hear what people go through out of desperation. And eventually he does get across and he does get to his parents, but what he goes through in between in that 2 months, and he's a young child. He's like, I think he was 9. And so people help him along the way, but not everybody's very helpful. So he runs into a lot. It was very well written and it was a great book. Solito. That's all I've got.